It was a cold December morning, the first Monday of the month. Jack enjoyed driving through the deserted streets of the city, breathing the fresh air and feeling the tranquility of dawn. The city lights were still flickering, and the recent snow covered everything with a white blanket, creating an almost magical atmosphere. As he drove down the main avenue, something unusual caught his eye. Among the snow, he saw an orange object that did not fit in with the winter landscape. Jack frowned, feeling an inexplicable uneasiness. He decided to stop the car and find out what it was. He got out of the car and walked toward the object, which he could now see was a child's coat, barely visible in the snow. As he got closer, his heart skipped a beat when he discovered a little girl, shivering from the cold. He knelt down beside her, carefully, and gently shook her shoulders. "Hello, little one. Are you okay?" asked Jack, his voice trembling slightly with concern. The girl opened her eyes slowly, revealing a pair of large grey eyes filled with fear and confusion. Jack took off his own scarf and wrapped it around the girl's neck, trying to give her some warmth. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to sound calm. "Laura," the girl murmured in a barely audible voice. "Where are your parents, Laura? Why are you here alone?" "I got lost," she replied, her voice trembling as much as her body. Jack felt a knot in his stomach. He couldn't leave the girl there in the cold. He decided to take her to his car and give her some warmth while he thought about what to do. "Come on, get in the car. I'll take you somewhere warm," he said with a reassuring smile. Laura nodded weakly and, with Jack's help, stood up. The snow crunched under their feet as they walked toward the car. Jack opened the passenger door and helped Laura in, turning the heat up to the highest setting. The girl huddled in the seat, and Jack offered her a blanket he always kept in the car for emergencies. "Here, this will keep you warm," he said, wrapping the blanket around Laura. He started the car and began to drive, heading toward his house. Along the way, he tried to make Laura feel more comfortable. "Where do you live, Laura?" he asked, keeping his voice soft. "I don't know. Mommy and I took a bus. Then Daddy said we were going to play hide-and-seek, but I couldn't find him," she said, her words filled with sadness and confusion. "Well, don't worry. Let's go to my house for now. You'll get warm and have something to eat. Then we'll see how to find your parents, okay?" Laura nodded, her expression showing a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Jack kept driving, his mind racing with thoughts and concerns. Who would leave a little girl alone in the middle of the snow? What kind of people were Laura's parents? They finally arrived at Jack's house, a small but cozy house on the outskirts of the city. He turned off the car and turned to Laura. "We're here. Let's go in," he said, getting out of the car and walking around to the passenger side to help Laura down. They entered the house, and the warmth of the interior was an immediate relief. Jack led Laura into the living room and settled her on the sofa, covering her with another blanket. "I'm going to make some hot tea. Would you like some?" he asked, heading for the kitchen. "Yes, please," Laura replied, her voice now firmer. As the water boiled, Jack thought about his mother, Alice, who was resting in her room. He didn't want to wake her up yet, knowing that she needed to rest. He made the tea and returned to the living room with 2 steaming cups. "Here you go. Drink slowly, it's hot," he said, handing Laura a cup. They sat in silence for a moment, the warmth of the tea and the tranquility of the home beginning to relax them both. Jack looked at the little girl and felt a surge of determination. He didn't know exactly how, but he was determined to help Laura, to find her parents and make sure she was safe. "We're going to be okay, Laura. I promise we'll figure it out," he said finally, his voice filled with conviction. Alice, Jack's mother, entered the room with slow, careful steps, leaning on her cane. "Who's this little girl, Jack?" Alice asked, with a mixture of curiosity and concern in her voice. "I found her last night on the street, Mom. She was alone and lost in the middle of the snow," Jack replied, his voice calm but firm. Alice approached the sofa, observing the sleeping girl with critical but compassionate eyes. "We can't just pick up a girl off the street and bring her here. What do you know about her?" Alice insisted, frowning. "I only know her name is Laura, and she was lost," said Jack, sighing. "She was playing hide-and-seek with her father and got disoriented. I couldn't leave her there, Mom." Alice shook her head, worried. "What if someone is looking for her? We could get in trouble." "I know, Mom, but I couldn't leave her there. I'll call the authorities this morning to report her and try to find her family," Jack replied with determination. Laura began to stir slowly, waking with the first rays of sun. She opened her eyes and looked around, confused at first. But then she remembered where she was. Her eyes met Alice's, who was watching her with a mixture of distrust and maternal concern. "Good morning, Laura," said Jack, smiling to reassure her. "This is my mother, Alice." Laura sat up on the sofa, rubbing her eyes. "Good morning," she said softly, still a little sleepy. Alice moved a little closer, trying to soften her expression. "Hello, dear. Are you feeling better?" she asked in a kinder tone. Laura nodded timidly. "Yes, thank you. I'm better." Jack sat down next to her, keeping his tone of voice calm and reassuring. "Laura, can you tell us a little more about what happened last night? You said you were playing hide-and-seek with your dad. Do you remember where that was?" he asked, trying to get more information. Laura frowned, trying to remember. "We were in a park, not far from here, I think. My dad said we would hide and I should look for him. But I couldn't find him. And then I didn't know how to get home," she explained, tears starting to well up in her eyes. Alice exchanged a worried look with Jack but remained calm. "It's okay, Laura. We're going to find your dad. Don't worry," said Jack, gently squeezing the girl's hand. Alice sighed and headed for the kitchen. "I'm going to make some breakfast. We need to think about what to do next," she said, leaving Jack and Laura in the living room. Jack watched his mother retreat and then turned back to Laura. "We're going to figure this out, Laura. I promise you're not alone," he said sincerely. As Alice prepared breakfast, Jack stayed with Laura, trying to make her feel safe and protected. The house, with its walls adorned with family photographs and mementos of times gone by, seemed warmer with the girl's presence. "Are you hungry?" Jack asked, trying to change the subject to distract Laura. "A little," Laura admitted, smiling timidly. Alice returned with a plate of toast and scrambled eggs, placing it on the dining room table. "Come on, Laura. Have something to eat," said Alice, making an effort to be more welcoming. Laura got up from the sofa and walked to the table, sitting down carefully. Jack joined her, pouring her a glass of milk. "Thank you, Mrs. Alice," said Laura, with a small smile. "You're welcome, dear," Alice replied in a softer tone. As Laura ate, Jack got up and reached for his phone. It was time to make some calls and try to find information about Laura's family. He dialed the local police number, explaining the situation and providing the information Laura had shared. "Yes, a girl named Laura. She says she got lost last night while playing in a nearby park. We need to find her family as soon as possible," Jack said to the police officer. After hanging up, Jack returned to the table and sat down next to Laura. "I've informed the police. They're going to help us find your dad," he said with a reassuring smile. Laura nodded, feeling slightly relieved. Jack had been trying to contact the police and other local authorities to locate Laura's family, but without much success. "Laura, did you say you remember your mum's phone number?" Jack asked calmly as he sat down next to her. Laura nodded, frowning as she tried to remember. "Yes, I think I do. She said slowly, reciting the number from memory. Jack wrote down the number and, with a reassuring smile, stood up to make the call. Alice watched closely, still somewhat skeptical about the situation. "Let's see if we can reach your mum," Jack said, dialing the number on his phone. The ringing tone sounded several times before a female voice, full of anxiety, answered. "Hello?" said the voice on the other end of the line. "Hello, good morning. My name is Jack. I have a little girl here who says her name is Laura, your daughter. I found her lost on the street last night," Jack explained, trying to sound as calm as possible. There was a brief silence before the voice broke into sobs. "Laura? Is she okay? Oh my God, I've been looking everywhere for her," exclaimed the woman, the emotion evident in her voice. "Yes, she's fine. She's safe at my house. Can you come and get her?" asked Jack, feeling a knot in his stomach as he heard the mother's desperation. "Yes, of course. Please give me the address. I'm leaving immediately," the woman replied hastily. Jack gave her the address and hung up the phone, turning back to Laura. "Your mom is on her way, Laura. You'll be with her soon," he said with a smile. Laura smiled with relief, her eyes shining with emotion. "Thank you, Jack." Alice, who had been watching silently, finally spoke. "I hope everything turns out okay. This is a very unusual situation," she said, still somewhat concerned. A short while later, the doorbell rang. Jack got up quickly to open it, and as he did so, he froze for a moment. In front of him stood Mia, the woman who had been his first love, her face etched with worry and exhaustion. "Mia?" he asked, incredulous. "Jack," Mia murmured, her eyes filled with tears. "I can't believe it's you." The two stood staring at each other for a moment, before Mia broke the silence. "Where's Laura?" she asked, looking past Jack into the house. "She's here. She's okay." "Come in, please," said Jack, stepping aside to let her in. Mia entered, and upon seeing Laura, she rushed to her and hugged her tightly. "Mom!" cried Laura, clinging to her mother. Alice watched from a distance, her expression softening as she witnessed the reunion. "Thank you, Jack." "I don't know how to thank you enough," said Mia, tears welling up in her eyes. "You don't have to thank me. I just did what any decent person would do," replied Jack, trying to maintain his composure. Mia turned back to Laura, stroking her hair. "I was so worried. I didn't know what to do when you got lost," she said, her voice trembling. Jack looked at Mia, noticing the signs of exhaustion and distress on her face. "What happened, Mia?" he asked, with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Mia sighed deeply, sitting down on the sofa while keeping Laura close. "It's a long story, Jack. After we broke up, I married Robert. At first, everything seemed fine, but it soon became a nightmare. He abused me, both physically and emotionally. And when Laura was born, things only got worse," she said, her voice filled with pain. Alice drew closer, listening intently. "Where is Robert now?" asked Jack, frowning. "He left us. A few days ago, he just disappeared, leaving us with nothing. I have nowhere to go, Jack. I'm desperate," Mia confessed, struggling to hold back tears. Jack felt a wave of emotions wash over him as he heard her story. He remembered the happy times they had shared and couldn't help but feel a deep compassion for her. "Mia, you're not alone. You and Laura can stay here with me until we find a solution," he said firmly. Mia looked at him gratefully, her eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Jack. I don't know what we would do without you, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. The days passed slowly at Jack's house, and although he tried to maintain a calm environment, he noticed that something was not right. Alice, his mother, seemed increasingly tense and annoyed by the presence of Mia and Laura. Jack, worried, tried to understand what was happening. One afternoon, while Jack was in the kitchen preparing dinner, he overheard Alice talking to Mia in a tone he couldn't ignore. "It's not that I don't want to help you, but I can't continue to allow this situation indefinitely," Alice was saying. Jack frowned and decided to intervene. "Mum, can we talk for a moment?" he asked, trying to remain calm. Alice looked at him with some discomfort, but she nodded and followed him into the living room. "What's going on, Mum? I've noticed that you're not happy with Mia and Laura here." "Why?" Jack inquired directly. Alice sighed, avoiding eye contact. "It's nothing, Jack. I'm just used to my space, and this is different," she replied unconvincingly. "Mum, I know there's something else." "I know you," Jack insisted, his patience beginning to wear thin. Alice finally looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of frustration and something deeper. "You don't understand, Jack. This situation reminds me of everything that happened years ago. I just want what's best for you," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "What do you mean? What happened years ago?" asked Jack, sensing that he was about to discover something important. Alice took a deep breath, as if preparing herself for a confession. I was part of the reason why Mia was forced to marry Robert. I thought that by getting her away from you, I was protecting you. I wanted you to have a better life, without distractions or problems," she admitted, her words filled with remorse. Jack froze, unable to process what he had just heard. "What did you do, Mum?" he asked, his voice shaking with disbelief and contained rage. Mia, who had been listening from the kitchen, appeared in the doorway, her eyes filled with surprise and pain. "Is that true, Alice?" she asked, her voice trembling. Alice nodded, unable to meet Mia's gaze. "I'm so sorry. I thought I was doing what was best for Jack," she said, whispering. Jack felt a wave of anger wash over him. He stood up abruptly, unable to contain himself any longer. "I can't believe it. How could you do such a thing? You ruined our lives," he shouted, his voice echoing through the small living room. Mia approached Jack, placing a hand on his arm. "Jack, calm down. We're here now, that's all that matters," she said, trying to pacify him. Jack nodded slowly, taking a deep breath to calm himself. "Mum, you need to understand that you've caused a lot of pain, but I want you to know that despite everything, I still love you. I just hope you can learn from this and never interfere in my life like that again," he said, his voice quieter but firm. Alice nodded, her eyes filled with remorse. Silence filled the room as they all processed what had happened. The morning dawned grey and charged with tension. Jack and Mia sat at the dining room table, planning their next move. Alice, though still affected by the recent conflicts, watched silently, aware of the gravity of the situation. "We need to find Robert," said Jack firmly. "We can't go on living with this uncertainty. Laura needs to be safe." Mia nodded, her face reflecting a mixture of determination and weariness. "I know Robert has some friends in the city. We could start by looking for them," she suggested, her voice subdued. Alice rose slowly and approached them, setting aside her resentment for Laura's well-being. "I know someone who might be able to help us. An old family friend. He works for the police department. Maybe he can give us some leads," said Alice, looking at Jack. Jack nodded, grateful for his mother's intervention. "Let's give it a try. We can't leave any stone unturned, he replied. They called Carlos, Alice's friend in the police, who promised to investigate and gather information about Robert. While they waited, Jack and Mia began contacting old acquaintances of Robert's, using every available lead to track him down. A couple of days later, Carlos called them with news. Robert has been sighted on the outskirts of town at a cheap motel. It looks like he's been hiding out there, Carlos reported over the phone. Jack and Mia exchanged determined looks. They knew this was their chance. "Thanks, Carlos. We're on our way," said Jack, hanging up the phone. Before leaving, Jack turned to his mother and Laura, who had been listening quietly. "We're going to work this out, Laura. I promise everything will be okay," he said, kneeling down next to the little girl. Laura nodded, clinging to Alice. "Be careful, Jack," said Alice, her voice full of concern. "And you too, Mia." Jack and Mia got into the car and drove to the outskirts of town. The drive was marked by a tense silence, interrupted only by the hum of the engine and the landscape that passed quickly by the window. "Jack, what are we going to do if we find him?" Mia asked, breaking the silence. "We'll bring him to justice. He can't keep running from his responsibilities," Jack replied with determination. They arrived at the motel, a run-down and shady place. They parked the car and walked to the reception desk, where an older man greeted them with a suspicious look. "We're looking for a man named Robert. We were told he might be here," Jack said, showing a picture of Robert. The receptionist looked at them for a moment before nodding slowly. "Yeah, I've seen him. He's in room 12 at the end of the hall," he replied, pointing his finger. Jack and Mia walked towards the indicated room, their hearts pounding. They stopped in front of the door, taking a deep breath before Jack knocked hard. "Robert, open up! We know you're in there!" Jack yelled. There was a moment of silence before noises were heard on the other side of the door. Finally, it slowly opened, revealing a haggard and nervous-looking man. "What do you want?" Robert asked, his voice trembling. "We want you to turn yourself in to the police and face the consequences of your actions," said Mia firmly. Robert looked at Mia and then at Jack, his eyes filled with fear and despair. I can't go back. They'll kill me," he said, backing away. "You have to face this, Robert. You can't keep running. Laura deserves a secure future," Jack replied. Robert looked down, knowing there was no escape. "All right, I'll turn myself in," he said in resignation. Jack and Mia escorted him to the car and took him to the police station. Carlos was waiting for them there, ready to receive Robert and make sure justice was served. Back at the house, Alice and Laura anxiously awaited news. When Jack and Mia returned with Robert in custody, they were relieved. "It's all over, Laura. You're safe now," Jack said, hugging the little girl. Alice smiled, though still worried about the future. The sun had barely begun to peek over the horizon when Jack received an urgent call from Carlos, the family friend who worked for the police. The voice on the other end of the line was grave and filled with concern. "Jack, I have bad news. Robert has escaped," Carlos said bluntly. Jack's heart sank upon hearing those words. They had worked so hard to capture him and put him behind bars, and now everything seemed to be falling apart again. "How is that possible?" asked Jack, trying to contain the frustration in his voice. "We don't have all the details yet, but it looks like someone helped him from the inside. You need to be alert, Jack. Robert is dangerous and he might try to get revenge," warned Carlos. Jack hung up the phone and turned to Mia and Alice, who were in the kitchen making breakfast. Laura was playing in the living room, oblivious to the tension that was once again invading the home. "What happened, Jack?" Alice asked, noticing her son's grim expression. "Robert has escaped," Jack replied, his voice tense. Mia dropped the knife she was using to slice bread, her face immediately pale. "No, this can't be happening," she murmured, bringing a hand to her mouth. Alice approached Jack, seeking answers. "What are we going to do? We can't let him find us here," she said with a mixture of fear and determination. "First, we need to secure the house. Then, we'll talk to Carlos about getting police protection. We can't leave anything to chance," Jack replied, trying to remain calm. As the day progressed, Jack and Mia began to receive bits and pieces of information about Robert's dark past. It was clear that he had been involved in criminal activities long before he met Mia. Evidence pointed to human trafficking, extortion, and extreme violence. Each new detail made the threat of his return even more terrifying. "I can't believe I was ever close to someone like that," said Mia, shaking with indignation and fear. "The important thing now is to stick together and protect Laura. We won't let that monster destroy us," Jack replied, his gaze firm. As the day wore on, Jack reinforced all the entrances to the house and kept Laura under constant surveillance. The little girl didn't fully understand what was going on, but she sensed the tension in the air. "Why is everyone so serious?" Laura asked innocently. "We're just taking some precautions, honey. Everything is going to be fine," Mia said, trying to sound convincing. As night fell, Carlos arrived at the house to discuss security measures. They had installed cameras and alarms around the property, and an officer was assigned to patrol the area overnight. "We'll do everything we can to keep you safe. Robert can't hide forever," Carlos assured them seriously. That night, as everyone tried to rest, Jack stayed awake, sitting in the living room with his eyes fixed on the front door. His thoughts constantly drifted towards the possibility of Robert attempting something desperate. "I'm not going to let him hurt us," he muttered to himself, his resolve stronger than ever. The following days passed in a tense calm. Jack and Mia supported each other, facing the challenges and dangers together. With each passing day, they realized that their love was stronger than they had imagined. The trials they were being subjected to only served to strengthen their bond. "No matter what happens, I will always be here for you and Laura," Jack said one night as he hugged Mia. "And I for you, Jack. Together we'll get through this," Mia replied, with a look of determination. Despite the constant threat, there were moments of hope and love that reminded them that, despite everything, they were building a life together. Jack made sure that Laura continued with her normal routine, taking her to the park and helping her with her homework, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos. However, Robert's shadow loomed over them, and they knew they had to be prepared for any eventuality. The tranquility they were trying to build was always in jeopardy, but together they stood firm, determined not to let fear dominate them. Every night, as the wind whispered outside the house and the shadows lengthened, Jack reminded himself that true strength lay in love and unity. And with that in mind, he was ready to face any challenge to protect those he loved. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, when Jack and Mia finally received the call they had been waiting for. Carlos, Jack's policeman friend, had informed them that Robert had been located in an abandoned cabin on the outskirts of town. Without wasting any time, Jack and Mia made their way to the location, their hearts pounding with anticipation of the impending confrontation. "Are you ready for this?" asked Jack as he drove, his voice firm but full of concern. "Yes, we have to do this," Mia replied, with determination in her eyes. "We can't let him keep hurting people." Upon reaching the cabin, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The old, dilapidated structure seemed like the perfect hideout for someone who wanted to disappear. Jack and Mia got out of the car and approached cautiously, their footsteps crunching on the dry leaves on the ground. "Robert, we know you're in there. Come out and face the consequences of your actions," shouted Jack, his voice echoing in the cool evening air. There was a moment of silence before noises were heard inside the cabin. Robert appeared in the doorway, his appearance disheveled and his eyes full of anger and despair. "Get out of here. You have no right to come looking for me," Robert shouted, taking a step back. "We're not leaving, Robert. You have to face what you've done," Mia said firmly, taking a step toward him. Robert pulled out a knife, his hands trembling but his intentions clear. "Don't make me use this. I just want to disappear. Leave me alone," he warned, his voice shaking. Jack exchanged a quick look with Mia before speaking again. "We're not going to let you escape your responsibilities. Laura deserves a safe future, and you can't continue to be a threat," Jack said, calmly but with unwavering determination. Robert took a step back, his eyes wide with panic. In a desperate attempt to escape, he lunged to the side, trying to run towards the nearby woods. Jack and Mia reacted quickly, following in his footsteps. The chase was short but intense. Robert ran through the uneven terrain, but his movements were clumsy and desperate. Jack finally caught up with him, lunging at him and managing to knock him to the ground. The struggle was brief but fierce, with Robert struggling and trying to break free. "Enough, Robert," shouted Jack, pinning his arm down. "It's time for this to end." Carlos, who had followed Jack and Mia, arrived just in time to help restrain Robert and remove the knife from his hands. With the situation under control, Robert was handcuffed and taken back to the cabin. "You've made a lot of mistakes, Robert. Now it's time to face the consequences," said Carlos as he escorted him toward the patrol car. Mia, who had watched the confrontation with her heart in her throat, approached Jack and hugged him. "Thank you, Jack. I don't know what I would have done without you," she said, with a sigh of relief. "We did the right thing. You and Laura are safe now," Jack replied, holding her tightly. As Carlos drove away with Robert, Jack and Mia stood in silence for a moment, assimilating what had just transpired. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, but at least now they could face it, without the constant fear of Robert's threat. Back home, Alice and Laura waited anxiously. Seeing Jack and Mia return safely, a wave of relief washed over the home. "Is everything okay?" Alice asked, her voice trembling. "Yes, Mom. Robert has been arrested. He's no longer a threat to us," Jack replied, hugging his mother. Laura ran to Mia, clinging to her tightly. "Mommy, is it over?" she asked innocently. "Yes, honey, it's over. We're safe now," Mia replied, stroking Laura's hair. The house, though still filled with painful memories, was beginning to feel a little safer. Jack and Mia knew they still had a lot of work ahead of them to rebuild their lives, but with Robert's threat eliminated, they could begin to look to the future with hope. Night fell gently, and for the first time in a long time, the family allowed themselves a respite, united in their determination to move forward, stronger and more united than ever. The tension in Jack's house had dissipated considerably since Robert's arrest. However, the atmosphere remained charged with unresolved emotions, especially between Alice and the rest of the family. Alice, who had observed the unfolding of events from a distance, knew that the time had come to face her own mistakes and seek reconciliation. One morning, while Jack and Mia were in the kitchen preparing breakfast, Alice entered, her expression showing a mixture of determination and vulnerability. She approached the table and sat down, looking at Jack and Mia with eyes full of remorse. "I need to talk to you," Alice began, her voice trembling. "I've made a lot of mistakes and I want to apologize for the hurt I've caused." Jack stopped stirring the eggs in the pan and turned to his mother, surprised by her words. "Mom, what are you talking about?" he asked, although he had an idea. Alice took a deep breath before continuing. "I've been selfish and controlling. When I forced Mia to marry Robert, I thought I was protecting you, Jack. But now I see that I only caused pain for all of you," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. Mia, who had been listening quietly, approached Alice and took her hand. "Alice, we all make mistakes. What's important is that you're here, willing to acknowledge it and to change," she said softly. Jack approached his mother, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Mom, it's been hard on all of us. But I also understand that what you did because you thought it was best for me. I accept your apology," he said sincerely. Alice wept openly, releasing years of guilt and remorse. "Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Mia. I promise I'll do everything I can to be a better mother and grandmother," she said between sobs. The reconciliation was a slow but necessary process. Over the following weeks, Alice made every effort to demonstrate her commitment to change. She spent more time with Laura, playing games and reading stories, trying to build a strong and loving bond with her granddaughter. One afternoon, while Laura was playing in the garden, Jack and Mia sat on the porch, watching as Alice pushed Laura on the swing. The sight was a reminder of how far they had come as a family. "It's amazing how things can change when there's love and forgiveness," Mia said, breaking the silence. Jack nodded, taking Mia's hand. "Yes, that's true. We've been through a lot, but we've come out stronger, and I believe there's still so much to build together," he replied with a smile. Mia rested her head on Jack's shoulder, finally feeling at peace. "I love you, Jack. Thank you for always being by my side," she said softly. "And I love you, Mia. I couldn't have done it without you," Jack replied, kissing her head softly. The gentle afternoon breeze brought with it a sense of renewal. The family, though still in the process of healing, was united by a renewed love and determination. Alice, who had been watching from the garden, felt a surge of gratitude as she saw her son and Mia so united. "It's time for a new chapter for all of us," she murmured to herself, smiling as she pushed Laura on the swing. In time, Jack's house was filled with laughter and shared moments. The kitchen, which had witnessed so many arguments and tears, now resonated with the sound of cheerful conversations and plans for the future. Alice, Jack, Mia, and Laura worked together to create a home filled with love and understanding. One evening, as they were having dinner together, Alice raised her glass, looking at each of them with bright eyes. "To love, forgiveness, and family. May we never forget what truly matters," she said, her voice full of emotion. They all raised their glasses, feeling the truth and importance of those words. "To family," they repeated in unison, toasting to the future they now looked upon with hope and unity. The road had not been easy, but together they had learned that love and forgiveness were the keys to overcoming any obstacle. And so, with a fresh start and hearts full of hope, the family prepared to face whatever the future might hold, knowing that as long as they were together, they could overcome anything. Jack's house, once filled with tension and conflict, now resonated with a newfound sense of hope and renewal. Jack, Mia, and Laura had decided to start anew, united by love and forgiveness. Alice, with renewed determination, had become the pillar of this transformation, learning to be a better mother and grandmother. One morning, as the sun rose slowly, illuminating the garden with its golden rays, Jack and Mia sat on the porch, watching Laura play among the flowers. Alice was in the kitchen preparing breakfast with renewed energy and enthusiasm. Can you believe how much we've changed in such a short time? Mia asked, breaking the silence. Jack smiled, watching Laura chase after a butterfly. It's been a tough journey, but we've come out on top. And the best is yet to come, he replied, taking Mia's hand tenderly. Laura ran towards them, her laughter filling the air. Look, Daddy, Mommy, I found a butterfly, she said, proudly displaying her discovery. It's beautiful, honey, said Mia, stroking Laura's hair. Alice came out of the house with a tray full of toast and orange juice. Breakfast is ready. Let's enjoy it together, she announced, smiling warmly. The family sat around the garden table, enjoying their breakfast and each other's company. Conversation flowed easily, filled with laughter and plans for the future. Alice watched her son and Mia, feeling grateful for the second chance they had built together. I've been thinking about something, Alice said, breaking the silence. Jack and Mia looked at her curiously. What is it, Mom? Jack asked. I want to do more to help the community. There are so many families that need support, and I believe we can make a difference, Alice explained, with determination in her voice. Mia nodded, seeing the sincerity in Alice's eyes. That's a wonderful idea. We could organize events and activities to help those in need, she suggested enthusiastically. Jack smiled, feeling proud of his mother's initiative. I'm in. It will be a way to give back some of what we have received, he added, looking at Laura, who was still playing with the butterfly. Over time, the family began working together on community projects, organizing food drives and events to support families in need. Jack's house became a gathering place for the community, a symbol of hope and solidarity. The days were filled with activities, and the garden was transformed into a vibrant space where children and adults gathered to share stories and experiences. Alice, with her wisdom and warmth, became a mother figure to many, offering advice and support. One evening, as the sun set, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, the family gathered in the garden for a special celebration. They had organized a party to thank the community for their support and collaboration. I want to thank you all for being here and for being a part of this new stage in our lives, Jack said, raising his glass. Together, we've shown that love and unity can overcome any obstacle. Applause echoed as neighbors and friends toasted to the future. Alice approached Jack and Mia, her eyes filled with tears of happiness. I'm so proud of what we've accomplished together. Thank you for giving me a second chance, she said, hugging them tightly. Mia smiled, returning the embrace. We're a family, Alice, and we always will be, she replied sincerely. Laura ran towards them, hugging her grandmother. I love you, Grandma, she said with a radiant smile. And I love you, my little girl, Alice replied, kissing her cheek. The evening progressed, and the party continued with laughter and music. The family, now more united than ever, prepared to face whatever challenges the future might bring, knowing that together they were invincible. As the last light of day faded, Alice looked around, seeing the smiling faces of her loved ones and friends. She felt a deep peace and satisfaction, knowing that they had found true happiness in love and unity. This is just the beginning of something wonderful, she murmured to herself, smiling as she watched Jack, Mia, and Laura dance under the stars. Jack's house had become a true home, a haven of love, forgiveness, and hope. And so, with a fresh start and hearts full of joy, the family stepped into a bright future, ready to face anything together. And that's a wrap for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about what you liked and what you'd like to see in the future. Remember, your support is crucial for us to keep creating quality content and growing our community. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.